Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Rux here, and to those of you who are new to my channel, we discuss all things astrology here. Today we are going to talk about the first house in astrology. The last time we spoke, we went through all the houses in astrology and in anyone's birth chart and what they govern. So today we are going to go much more in depth and talk about the planets in your first house and what they mean and how that is basically going to affect your life. So what is the first house in astrology? The first house is governed by your rising sign, so by your ascendant, which basically means that in order to figure out what sign your first house is in, you have to know the exact time when you were born. I'm going to leave a link down in the description below where you can go online and pop in your date of birth, time of birth, and place of birth to figure out what your rising sign is and what sign governs your first house, because that's super important. In general, the first house governs our persona, so the mask that we put on when we go out into the world. It governs the first impression that we make on people. It governs the way the world perceives us, and it's basically the lens through which the world sees us, but through which we also see the world. If we were to think of ourselves as being a house, the first house and the rising sign are basically the front door. So the point through which everyone has to go through in order to go inside, and it's also the point through which we have to get out in order to go out there into the world. The first house also governs our physical body and, to an extent, our personality, because the way the world reacts to us and the way we project ourselves into the world is obviously going to mold our personality to a certain extent, because then we've got innate features and qualities that are not shaped by our interaction with the world. If you've got your sun in the first house, I have to say, what people see is literally what they get. So the sun rules our ego, and it rules what we aspire to be seen as. It's basically the area in which we shine. So someone with the sun in the first house might be used to getting a lot of attention for who they are ever since they were a young child. Personally, I don't have any planets in the first house, and I think that is one of the most comfortable positions to be in, because you get to interact with people on all these different fields rather than them basically coming at you with a spotlight, as it usually happens with the people who've got the sun there. However, someone with the sun in the first house is a natural born leader. Everyone sees them as a leader. They see themselves as a leader. They're very much self-aware of what they're doing, very self-conscious, and like I said, what people see is what they get, because that's what the individual aspires to be. Then if you've got, for instance, the moon in the first house, the moon is the planet that governs, in general, our emotions, and it makes us very much in tune with other people's emotions. So someone with the moon in their first house might be seen as a natural nurturer, a natural protector, someone who goes out into the world looking to take care of other people. Because it makes you so if you've got the moon in your first house, it can make you so self-aware of other people's feelings, desires, needs, that you can be very responsive, very adaptable, very flexible. This is a very, very sensitive placement, so make sure you don't spend time in the presence of energetic vampires that suck the energy out of you and that take advantage of this sensitivity. Then if you've got Venus in your first house, I mean, I have to say you are very lucky, because you're probably very beautiful and very attractive, and no matter what you wear, no matter what you put on, no matter where you go, people are going to be charmed by you. Venus in the first house makes someone prone to be very much focused on bringing harmony in people's lives. I would say an extreme outcome of Venus in the first house is turning you into a people pleaser. It can make you a little bit indecisive because you don't want to upset anyone. And a potential drawback of Venus in the first house would be that you can have a self-indulgent attitude towards life, because Venus also rules the senses. So it can make you prone to overeating or overspending. Venus in the first can also give you a great love of decorations, of bodily decorations, of jewelry, of fine clothes, of luxurious accessories, and it can also make you very good at working in a field that involves all the things that I've mentioned. Mars in the first house, on the other hand, makes someone, sorry guys, I am filming outside. Mars in the first house can make someone very direct, very straightforward. It can make them a little bit aggressive in childhood, and some people might see people with Mars in the first house as a bit of a bully, but once you reach maturity and once you understand how other people see you, for instance, if you've got Mars in the first house, it can make you very much assertive and very honest and very direct. And as long as you scale back the bulliness or the bully tendencies, everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be all right. You are the natural born warrior and the leader, and someone you can sometimes you can be seen as taking things from others or from life using your force, your power, your strength. Mercury in the first house. Oh my days, you are such a curious cat. So Mercury in the first house makes someone naturally good at communicating, naturally good at using words. It gives someone the gift of gab. It makes you great salesmen. It makes you great politicians. And it makes you generally very curious about things. And stimulating the mind and having your mind stimulated all the time is something that defines you, I would say. If you've got Jupiter in the first house, I have to say you probably are protected by the universe, by people, by everyone. You're very much an optimist because you probably think of yourself as being lucky, which I have to say you are lucky because Jupiter is the equivalent of God in astrology, so it basically protects one in the area in which it falls in your chart. So you might have a very optimistic outlook on life. You might be the one who goes out into the world, willing to explore, willing to expand their knowledge. It can make you a fantastic professor, a fantastic preacher. It can give you sometimes this attitude of, I know it all, I've explored it all, no one is smarter than me, so be careful not to fall in that trap, because you probably know that is not true. No one actually knows it all. In terms of like physical body, from a physical body point of view, I have to say this. If you've got Jupiter in your first house, make sure you work out regularly, because it can make you a little bit prone to gaining weight quite quickly, because Jupiter expands everything that it touches. Then if you've got Saturn in the first house, well, Saturn is the exact opposite of Jupiter. In childhood, you might have been told to shut up, you might have not been listened to, you might have felt like no one is actually paying attention to your needs, and you basically restricted your personality and your self-expression, and you've kept to yourself, and you've become very cautious, very careful as to what you do, what you say. You're probably a fantastic planner, but you can be very much afraid of putting yourself out there into the world. Afraid is a key word here, and like I said, this probably has to do with the experience that you've had in your childhood. What you did and the way you expressed yourself might have never been regarded as being good or good enough. And I have to say, you might have to work with yourself in this lifetime in order to pluck the courage to be who you really are and not to hold yourself back. It's a very perfectionist, this is a very perfectionist placement, and it can be quite a burden to have Saturn in the first house. What can I say? From a physical point of view, Saturn in the first house can make someone very lean, and it can give a really good bone structure and really good teeth, because that's what Saturn rules from a physical point of view. Then if you've got Uranus in your first house, Uranus is the planet that rules Aquarius, as you probably know, so it will give you some of these Aquarian traits. You might be seen as being different from a physical point of view. Maybe you're just like merely taller than most people. And it can give you the impression that you are either an outsider from an early age, or that you're in a way different. And I have to say, the best thing that can come out of this is that you will celebrate your uniqueness, the fact that you are not like everyone else. You will celebrate your individuality, and you will push others to celebrate it as well. You are very much an eccentric cat, and you probably enjoy every single minute of it. You can be seen as having very radical mentalities and being very progressive and very forward-facing. And that's fabulous, if you ask me, because, hey, I am an Aquarius. If you've got Pluto in the first house, oh my days. So this is probably, along with Saturn in the first house, it's probably, I wouldn't want to use the word problematic, but it can lead to tendencies of having to deal with mental health issues. It can literally mean that at some point in this life you will have a near-death experience. It can mean that when you came out into the world, it wasn't very easy for your mother to bring you out into the world. It can mean early trauma in your life. And it can also mean that you're trying to hide your true self from the world, because the Pluto principle, so what Pluto does is bury things. It's suppressing things. However, with Pluto in the first house, you're probably very street smart. No one can fool you. You see behind people's motives. You see behind their words. You see behind what they apparently want to do and apparently what they say. You can be very much a control freak, and you can become very obsessed with some things in your life, but that can actually give you a great deal of focus. So it's a double-edged sword, I have to say, but be careful with your mental health in general, and take care of your body and take care of yourself, because it can make you a little bit more accident-prone, I would have to say. Then last but not least, if you've got Neptune in the first house, you can have this very artistic outlook upon life. You can be a mirror for other people to reflect themselves into. There was this astrologer that I watched on YouTube that said, if you've got Neptune in the first house, you're like Marilyn Monroe. Everyone likes you because they can see themselves in you. Your ego and your personality can be very dissolved. It can be very hard even for yourself to perceive who you are. However, you are very sensitive, very caring, very compassionate, very generous. Be careful not to be naive. I mean, Neptune in the first house can make someone quite naive. And Neptune, whatever it touches, it dissolves it. So for you, it dissolves the ego, and it can make you very spiritual. However, remember, we live in a material world, and you do not want to be taken advantage of. Guys, let me know if you've enjoyed this planets in the first house video, and if you've got any questions, make sure you send them to me. Last but not least, before I go away, I offer natal chart readings as a service. So if you want me to interpret your natal chart, and if you want to find out more about yourselves, make sure to drop me a line on the email address that I've left in the description box down below. Enjoy, guys, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye!